You've heard of inheritance, but have you heard of unheritance? Of course not, because it's not actually a real word, but it is something that I talk about now when I'm working with clients and thinking about estate planning. Right? If you're at this generation and you've got folks who are elderly, it's natural to imagine what life looks like when you're gone. What does inheritance look like? And mortality and all that stuff. And generally, we just default to what has been done in the past. We look at it and say, I have bank accounts, I've got real estate, I've got assets. It's all just going to go to my kids. But have you really looked into what happens when you pass? Does it go to your kid? No, it doesn't work that way. There's an entire process that has to be fulfilled. All that costs money, and then what's left over goes to your kids. That's what inheritance looks like. There's probate, there's time delays, there is taxation. Heavy taxation is likely. That's inheritance. That's why I'm proposing we consider an unheritance. Not doing it that way, doing it a different way. So I worked on a file recently, and this is what's going on. The fathers are elderly, their parents are elderly, and they've got money in their accounts, just like I imagine your parents might have got assets, and they're just trying to figure out what's the best way to plan for wealth transfer to my kids. I don't want to involve CRA. I don't want to involve the government in taxation at this point. I want to try and minimize as best as I can, and you absolutely can. The reality is, on your final year of your being alive, or your parents being alive, everything is deemed to have been sold in that year, at that time, everything, which means all that money is pumped into 1 year's tax bill. And because all that money is in one tax bill, and the way our tax system works with the graduated scales, guess what? All of that money is going to be subject to the highest tax rate in all likelihood. That means, as of current, 53.53% of whatever is coming out is going to be subject to tax. You're going to lose that tax. You're going to actually keep less than what you pay, which is absurd. That's the reality of it. So plan for it. What are you going to do? What we've done with a client was looked at all the assets that are liquid or cash and said, okay, it could sit here in my RSP. It could sit here in my whatever account. And then when I pass, it's all going to be sold, big tax bill. Or I can use tools, strategies to prevent the taxation on these numbers. What we did was there were children, so they're siblings, and the parents funded contracts. Okay, so the parents are putting the cash into the contracts with the money mansions, and those contracts are on each of the three kids. Kids are going to have their own personal money mansions, currently owned by the parents, but upon passing of the parents, it will go down to the kids. And when this happens, there is no taxation. This is not a taxable event. Ownership will change along with the equity in these contracts, and they'll go to the kids without taxation. And these accounts will continue to grow in value. There is no market risk. There is no worrying about what happens if tariffs, what happens if Trump. None of this stuff matters. That's the beauty of it. On top of that, the original amount of money that was being put into these accounts, it will take some time to fund these things because you have to follow some rules. But the amount that's going to be in equity in these contracts through this inheritance plan, it's going to far exceed what was contributed to this plan. I talk all about this, like the strategies in Get Wealthed Up. I talk about money mansions often. You've seen this. It's ultimately the same tool that we work with to create these outcomes. The inheritance is absolutely achievable using the money mansion. And I really think you may want to consider how this could help you get wealthed up.